Hello, Richard from budgetguitarist.com for part 2 of the Strat baritone conversion neck project thing. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to roll the edges on the edge of the neck. So the edge of the neck right here is basically a sharp angle like this. And that's not very comfortable. Guitars that have been played for years and years and years, that edge of the wood gets kind of naturally worn off. On expensive guitars and expensive necks, they pre-roll the edge at the factory, so they kind of take that sharp edge and just kind of roll it a little bit. There's a lot of different ways to do this. So normally, I don't have maple necks. Normally I have like rosewood on like a maple neck, and there's not a whole lot of finish involved. And I'll actually just use like a 800 grit sandpaper, and I'll just kind of round the edge off that way. But those are necks where the fretboard is just wood, and you can do that pretty easy with sandpaper, and then you can put some lemon oil on it and it kind of seals it and you're fine. This actually has a finish on it, which is annoying in the sense that you can't really use sandpaper because you're just going to take the finish off. Now, what I'm going to do is a time-honored tradition of kind of applying pressure to the neck and just kind of pushing down on the wood a little bit to kind of round it. So basically, I've got a screwdriver here that's round all the way around. I'm applying pressure, and then I'm just kind of turning the neck like this. So what I'm really doing is I'm kind of crushing that wood just a little bit. And I'm not going nuts here. I'm not pushing as hard as I can. I'm just trying to take a little bit of that edge off. And it works. Sandpaper works better. If I'm not satisfied with this, you know, like a couple months from now, I might decide to just use the sandpaper anyway. But again, there's finish on this, so it makes it a little tougher. Aren't I crushing the finish? Well, yeah. But it's not flaking off or anything. It's very possible that I'm going to get lit up in the comments section for doing this. And then there's going to be people who say, oh, I've been doing that for years. It doesn't do any harm at all. I think Dan Earlywine would do it this way. But this is the Budget Guitarist YouTube channel. StewMac probably has a $2,000 tool for this. I'm going to end up with forearms like Popeye if I do this long enough.
Wow.
Yeah, this is getting tiring, but look, I'm almost done with one side. It's just taking the sharp edge off. That's all it's doing. I'm not really reshaping the wood that much. Just kind of blunting that sharp edge. You ever wonder what causes fret sprout? That's where like the fret comes off the side of the neck and it kind of hurts you when you're using it. What that is usually caused by, well, obviously it's caused by changes in the wood because metal doesn't really move around that much in cold or warm weather, but wood can. The wood can swell up or it can shrink. So on really expensive guitars like Ernie Ball PRS, what they do is dry the wood out, and they get out almost all of the moisture so that way there isn't as much moisture in the wood that can cause the wood to shrink or expand. Okay, there we go. So now what's next? Well, I could put the hardware on, but I don't want to do that. The next thing I want to do is work on the nut. So as I showed in the last video, the slots inside of this nut are very shallow. This is hard to do. Can't really see it super well, but they're like starter slots. So they really need to be a lot deeper. And a good question is, how deep should these slots be? Well, I'm not really going to know until I get strings on it. These slots are, like I said, starter slots. So what I have here is I've got two different nut slotting files from StewMac. And basically this one is 0.10. So this is 10 thousandths of an inch, and this one over here is 20 thousandths of an inch. Neither one of these are going to be big enough for the low E string on this guy, but it's okay because what you can actually do is in the slot, like let's say this is the slot and this is the file, you can kind of move the file around like this. So between the 10 and the 20, I can usually do most. These are not inexpensive. These are kind of pricey. And the reason is it's kind of like a little saw, like there's little teeth here, but if you were to look at this file here under a magnifying glass, you would see that the teeth kind of goes down like that. It almost forms like a U, right? So instead of just being like a solid block down there where the teeth are square, it kind of makes a U, and that's what you want in your nut slot. You don't want a slot that's like squared off like that. You want a slot that is the shape of the string, which is round on the bottom. Now, when you're cutting a slot in a nut, you want to be careful because you don't want to, and I'm going to exaggerate this, you don't want to cut it like at this angle, right? Because what the string is going to do is it's going to come in over the nut and then it's going to go down. So what you kind of want to do with a nut slot is you kind of want to shape it so that it's going down a little bit. Right at the edge here, closest to the first fret, that's as high as it's going to be. So when you're filing, you don't want to, and I'm exaggerating again, you don't want to go like that. You also don't want to go like this. You're just going to kind of straight across and then down a little bit. I know that I can file these down, and if I can tell that they're still higher than this fret here, just kind of eyeballing it, that I'll be okay. What I want to do is get them, kind of rough them in, and then I want to put the strings on, and then I'll do the final adjustment. And this board has a radius of 9.5 inch radius. And so what that means is it's not perfectly flat, it's kind of rounded a little bit. So as I'm cutting these slots, I want to be cognizant of that. Like learning how to cut nut slots, this is something that people do for years. It can take a really long time to get really great at it. You don't have to be really great at it. You really don't. What you have to be is patient. Because once you get the strings on and you can depress the string or press it down at the 3rd fret, you can measure how much distance you have between the string and the top of the 1st fret. And then you'll know if you have to keep going. So this is going to be, for me, you know, I don't have a ton of experience. I've done maybe 10 of these. This is going to take a long time because I'm going to work slowly and carefully. Don't worry, this entire video won't be nothing but me just doing this. This is me explaining the process. Now, here's the other thing. Painter's tape. If you work on guitars, you know about this. If you want to work on guitars, you want to learn about this. The nice thing about painter's tape is it does not take the finish off of anything, and that's really good. But the reason I want to put it down is because I don't want to be scraping up the headstock or scraping up the fret or scraping up the fretboard with my file in case the file slips. And so what I'm going to do, yeah, I cut that kind of big, didn't I? It's just, I want to tape this up, tape on the fret here. Let's put like 2 tapes on the fret because I really don't want to scratch the metal. That would suck. And this is just in case I slip with the file. Let's go 1, 2. I'm not being very careful because it doesn't matter. This is just to protect it. So we go here, and some more, and some more. You go through a lot of this stuff if you work on guitars. I'm going to get started. Now, you can use like reading glasses to do this. You don't have to buy one of these visor thingies because they look really dorky, but they also work extremely well.
And they make you look like a mad scientist.
It's terrible, I know. I'm going to take my 20 thousandths, and down here on the low E string, I'm going to take this starter slot and I'm just going to widen it out a bit. Widen it and deepen it just a bit. I want to try to make sure that this line is straight. I'm going slowly and very carefully. And I am angling it down a little bit. Now a little bit of an angle. I've got my slots way more defined and also deeper but not too deep. They're still, oh, you can't really see. You can kind of see. They're still pretty shallow, and that's intentional. Also, some of these slots might not be wide enough yet. That's also okay, but they're more well defined now. And what I'm going to do, I got my strings here. This is light gauge baritone strings by Diodario or D'Addario, depending on how you want to pronounce it. So the low E is going to be, it's going to be the brass end. So you can see here's the red and the brass. Here's the brass. So you can already see, oh, maybe you can, let me get closer. You can already see like my slot is nowhere wide enough and nowhere deep enough. Let me kind of show you here. About all I can say for it is it's in the right spot. But basically this string should be seated about halfway down into there. And right now, it's just sort of touching it. So I've got quite a lot of filing to do here. I'm going to take my files and I'm just going to kind of file it back and forth like that, back and forth, and widen the slot, match it up with the string, and get it to about where I want it. And then when I'm done with that, I'll move on to the next string, which is the red one, which is the 5th string. That's going to go there. You can pretty much get by with a 10,000ths and a 20,000ths if you you do what I'm doing here. You get creative about how you use it. I'm getting warmer, Doc. We're back. I've got this roughed in. I don't know if you can see, probably not. I've got it roughed in. I'm ready to put the strings on. I'm psyched. So first we got to take the painter's tape off. There we go. Okay. So I have to say, one of the things I've really learned just now in cutting these slots is you really could save a lot of time by getting like some bigger files. I mean, the 10,000ths and the 20,000ths, like the biggest string here is 62,000. So for the 20, I had to make it like 3 times the width. And that took a lot of like angling and stuff. I've got the string tree here, but I've decided I'm not going to put the string tree on until at the very, very end after I've played it so that I can see, number one, does it really need it? And number two, exactly where it should go. So I'm going to do that last after I've played it and stuff. So I'm going to put the tuning keys on, and then I'm going to attach the neck to the body. I'm going to put the strings on, and I'm going to kind of rough in the intonation and the action and tune it up, stretch the strings. And then when I'm all done with that, I'm going to adjust the nut. Then I'll get into the real actual action intonation stuffs. So if you missed part 1, there's 2 little knobs sticking out of this tuner guy here, and it corresponds with the 2 little holes on the back of the headstock. So really simple, you just put them in. Now how do I know which one of these goes in which hole? These are not staggered, so they're all identical. It doesn't matter. Put that guy through, put the washer on, screw this guy down. I'm going to hand tighten this. I'm going to hand tighten it pretty tight. You don't call it hand tight, do you? Call it finger tighten, because I'm not tightening it with my hand. I'm using my fingers. It's Friday night as I'm filming this. You know, other people go out on a Friday night and do all kinds of stuff, and here I am making this video. I really want a baritone guitar though, and if I keep at this, I'm very close to having the strings on. Okay, I got the tuning keys on. The next step is to put this guy on the body. Put the neck on like this, flip this guy over, put my head out of the camera shot, plate. Let's see, righty tighty, wrong way, right way. Okay, so this needs to be lined up perfectly. I'm so strong I don't need a screwdriver. I'll just twist it in 2. Okay, let's do this one. Feeling where that hole is, and it's right there. Okay, this guy, make sure I got the hole in the right spot. Yep, And last but not least, this guy. And I'm not putting these screws in all the way, by the way. I want to hand tighten them slowly and carefully. I'm just doing like most of the work. Okay, so now, okay. Part of the reason I'm hand tightening is I don't want to strip out the screws with this dumb thing. Okay, so now, almost done. It's good, good. And yep, there we go. It's alive. Groovy. All right, I'm ready to put strings on this thing.